Greetings. My name is Jacqueline Davis, and on behalf of OneShared.World, a global organization dedicated to our interdependence, it is a pleasure to welcome you to the second in a series entitled Sustaining Culture During Past and Current Conflicts. In partnership with the John Brademas Center at New York University, this event features arts leaders from around the world who are using their skills to foster mutual understanding and respect across cultures. Working in South America, the Middle East, the United States, as well as around the world, these artists and cultural leaders will offer their thoughts and their experiences on how they connect with audiences and build bridges across communities. I am now delighted to introduce Arts Professor Elizabeth Bradley and former chair of the Department of Drama at New York University's Tisch School for the Arts. Professor Bradley.
Hello, everyone. Great pleasure to be here, and I look forward to the many rainbow-colored issues I know we're going to explore over the next period of time that we are able to spend together. I wanted to begin with a question which is both personal and related to what you bring to your work as practicing artists and activists before we go on to some of the bigger issues. So my opening question, and if I can begin with you, Ahmed, I'd be grateful. My opening question is, can you explain to us both what motivates you primarily in the work that you do, and secondly, what sustains your personal ability to do it?
Hi, Liz. Thank you. And it's a pleasure to be with you here today. These are really complex questions. what motivates me to do the work I do? I mean, there are different things. I have two hats. So I'm an artist, I'm a playwright and a director. So that's my artistic side. And then I'm a culture operator. I run various institutions in Cairo, Egypt, and a festival, a yearly festival, a venue, co-working space for the culture sector. I mean, a bunch of organizations. And although there are two very different things, but somehow there's a connecting point. My artistic side, there is a need for me to express myself. And I was lucky to find an artistic practice that I gave myself to, and that gave me the power to be able to do that. And when I say I express myself, I express myself not just as myself trying to talk about my life, but I see myself as an element of a bigger community, of a society, and I feel that I'm expressing what I'm expressing. I'm expressing it on behalf of not of the whole society, but at least of a certain group or of a part of it. Okay, so I'm concerned about social issues, about political issues, and knowing that I've got the capacity to express myself while a lot of other people don't. For many reasons, not necessarily just political reasons, but maybe for simply because they don't have the means to express themselves in an artistic way that could be disseminated to a large number of people. So I feel that this is a certain responsibility, and that gives me, I mean, there is a personal satisfaction when I'm expressing myself as an artist. As a culture operator, I feel it's more as a duty. I think that in countries, I don't want to use the term, but like in the global South, in the non-Western world, so just better terms than other terms, the non-Western world, if an artist has the possibility or the know-how, it's not just a possibility, but the actual skills to be able to do other things than their art, then they are obliged to. So I believe that an artist only needs to be an artist. That's if they just do their art, this is what they're made for. This is enough. They don't need to be anything else. They don't need to be an activist. They don't need to be a culture operator. They just need to make good art. That's more than enough. But if an artist has the capacities to act in order to service the rest of the sector, then they should do it. I would say, fortunately, and sometimes unfortunately, I do have these capacities, because sometimes it's like very different. They're very different brains, actually.
Yeah.
So I luckily I have this capacity, so I put it in the service of the community, because I know exactly how important to me to have found a voice through theater, for myself, for my well-being, and also I hope to sing for the audiences that came and saw my work, and I want to support other artists to be able to do that.
Thank you. So the second part of the question, you so well illuminated this and plus versatility, and that sometimes that fragmenting, can take a toll, and you'll be determining what the priority is for your attention and energy. And you are doing it, as everyone in this conversation is, in a different and singular way, in a increasingly complex framework of circumstances. So can you share with us what sustains you in your ability to continue, to found a festival, to run a training center, to be honest in your own practice in the face of these complexities? How do you keep doing what you're doing?
I'm a pretty determined person. So I go for things sometimes when I shouldn't, but that's how it is. But also I have to say, and it's not, it's not the support that I get, myself and the organizations I run, through international organizations that support us.
Okay.
Without them, we wouldn't exist. We wouldn't be sustained all that time. The teams I work with, I work with a wonderful team of very young people. Most of them are half my age, and I say that because it's necessary, and sometimes I have to extract myself as an artist and just step aside, but then everything works, and that kind of support. But also, what really motivates me is the joy I see when I'm working with young people, how motivated they are, how they believe in what we do. When the audiences come out of a play or of a part of a festival and they feel that they have just experienced something extraordinary, these are all the things that gets us motivated, and that helps us go through the many hurdles we meet in our careers and in working in sometimes very difficult and complicated circumstances. It's as simple as showing a piece from another country, and in the festival, and seeing the audience coming out illuminated. Their faces are just with joy, and they've experienced something that that added something to them as audiences. This is the success that keeps us going, basically.
Fantastic. Lupe, could I ask you to address the same core questions? You also are accomplished in many, many aspects of the artistic discipline that you've engaged in. But could you share with us your sort of primary motivation, and then what sustains you, what enables you to keep doing what you're doing, despite whatever complexities may be posed?
Well, I was migrating from the music to the theater in a way that I couldn't avoid. So it was something that invaded my being. And since then, I has been suffering from this disease that I have to make always theater is an incurable disease. And my subject matters have changed as I grow up, and as the country surrounding me has changed as well.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, it was more into fictional classics and doing, good theater only. Then after, something really hits me that was kind of a social responsibility of being able to give a voice to those who don't have a voice. I took seriously that responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
But it has changed through time, mostly because when we hit this new regime in Venezuela, that is in the beginning wasn't as authoritarian apparently as it is now, we just waited for the 5 first years to get over, so to go to elections and change the government. But we have been waiting 25 years to that to happen. So that and this and censorship and the subject matters, the content that is important to address in theater productions have changed as well during this period of time. And I have, for example, a subject matter that hits me profoundly, and I think all Venezuelan families, is the immigration phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the beginning, Venezuela was a country where we welcome migrants, and we were made out of migrants, really. That's where reside our greatness and our capacity of being prosper. But then after, we start migrating for the first time, not only for doing a master's degree and coming back, but to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And first, it was a population of sources, a high-class population in the beginning. But now people are migrating by foot,
Right.
crossing the Darien Desert.
Yeah.
And many dead people in the traverse, in the journey. And we reached 10 million people already in 25 years. So that's a subject matter. That's a content that really moved me. And my family is all spread out. The only members of my family that are still in Venezuela are us, me and my husband. And I do theater in Venezuela. I keep going. Is something that I feel responsible for doing. But I have changed a lot in my way of addressing the issues.
And what sustains you in the face of these difficulties and the extended time? Because clearly you remain very committed to making work in the Venezuelan context.
Well, in the beginning, we used to have producers and private enterprises who help theater makers. Right. And, radio stations and TV programs, but we lost all free press. So we don't have any way to promote shows but social media. Right. We don't have, but only a third part of the talent because they migrated. And we don't have any support. So I managed to do a play with 2 chairs and to do workshops to find a way to find beauty and to make beauty and poetry only with 2 chairs.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need money to do good theater. What we need is good text, good actors, commit artists. So in that doing, recently, for example, because we used to have like 40 theaters in Caracas only, and now there are still only 6 in commercial centers, and we have private venues like gardens in private houses, family houses, patios, and public attendance has lower as well because the money is not for going to the theater but for eating for the people, right?
Yeah.
And but besides all of that, the government have started to restore some of the venues in order to do strictly entertainment. That is to say, big musicals from the US that are proven to be successful, or classics, even opera. We did our first opera after 25 years not doing opera at all, a month ago. and with the same costumes and props from 20 years ago. We did La Traviata. They did La Traviata in the big theater. But they close all theaters. They use only the theaters for political events, and they rent the theaters for churches to do ceremonies.
Right. And yet you are able to remain convinced that your own work has meaning, and you continue to find the resourcefulness to make it happen.
Yes, well, what we do, we share the box office in equal parts.
Yeah.
And there is some groups that sustain their activity, for example, asking for embassies, for budget to the embassies. That's a new resource that started happening like 3 years ago. But the problem is that if you receive funds from the Spanish embassy, you need to do a Spanish text. Or if or French contemporary dramaturgy.
Yeah.
You don't, I mean, the playwright, the local playwright is a risk you have to take by yourself.
I understand. Thank you so much. Zeyba, could I ask you to embrace those questions as well? You have had a remarkable kind of 1,000-foot view on some of these issues playing out in a number of different socio-political contexts. And I imagine that you've got similarly now at the Doris Duke Foundation, you're seeing a wide range of how the arts are continuing to sustain and how the arts leaders are maintaining their commitment to showing up. So again, what motivates you most in the work that you're currently doing? And when you encounter difficulties, what sustains you? What allows you to continue even in the face of, am I the only one who thinks it's getting even more complicated and demanding? I think not, probably. Thank you for thinking about these issues with me.
Thank you, Liz. And I have to say that really I'm continuing what I've been doing all my life. I come from an academic and a creative family, family of artists and thinkers. And I've grown up in that atmosphere of really using whatever skills we have to solve problems. And so what really motivates me is to make a difference, and to make a difference in society, whatever community that I'm a part of. I've lived in different parts of the world, and it's the same impulse. I also believe that it's our moral imperative. Those of us who have the privilege of not worrying about survival on the most basic level, getting food and shelter and safety, that it's our moral imperative to help everybody so that all the boats can rise to a certain level. And it sounds very romantic, very idealistic, but I really do believe that. It's my ultimate motivation. And I think that for me, more than anything else, yes, I'm in philanthropy now, and I've been here for more than a decade. For me, whether in the field or whether in philanthropy, the most sustaining element is imagination, which goes beyond any of the tactical tools. So they're tactics, but ultimately we win when we use our imagination. We win the ability to speak on this platform and see each other, even though we're in different parts of the world, and hear each other, and do so without any static on the line. Remember when we used to have phone calls and we'd say, hello, hello, do you hear me? We've come a long, long way. And so imagination to me is absolutely everything. It is what sustains me in difficulties, because it also gives me the capacity to push my thinking, my critical thinking, and my ability to strategize. It gives me that pressure to do better. And my ultimate joy is to find a solution that will touch people and help them in whatever way possible, either in the most intimate way or in a much larger collective way.
Oh, thank you so much. I wonder if I might pick up on something you said and return to you, Ahmed, and ask you to respond to this thought. I think many, as you put it, in the Western world, anyway, remember what was perceived as the promise of the Arab Spring. And please disagree with me if I'm characterizing this incorrectly, but I have certainly heard it represented as, the revolution that started on Facebook, and that social media really was the access point that allowed people to gather in the square. And now, certainly as we in the West are facing an increasing deluge of perhaps we could argue technology-fueled disinformation, fragmentation, and confusion. I wonder if you could comment on the role that the digital technologies continue to play in your work or not. Do you embrace or eschew? And you don't, clearly we can't reduce it to, all good, all bad. But as Zeyba pointed out, from the crackly telephone call to the fact that we're able to be in conversation together, the four of us here in this moment, hoping that this conversation might provide inspiration for connection with others who are part of the OneShared.World community. Again, we've got a lot to try to keep in balance. So does that provoke something that you could respond to, Ahmed?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I would like to connect what you just said to something Lupe said earlier about how the theater is about the text and an actor, and a space for the audience. And I mean, I totally agree with that, because I've just recently done this piece, which is a translation from an English text by Duncan Macmillan called "Every Brilliant Thing." And it's basically that. I did the Arabic version of this, and I've been showing it in Egypt and other parts of the Arab world. And it's exactly that. And I always say that this needs to be studied in all theater schools, because it brings us down to the basics. So yes, there is technology, and yes, we can use it. I mean, I've used video in my work since early 2000. And cameras that are connected wirelessly. And of course, the technology then was not as it is today. And we had to manage a bunch of things. And, did a piece in a moving bus with live scene being filmed in the street, transmitted into the bus as, things like that. But for me, it's really about the need of the, what is why are we doing this? Why is an artist doing this within their work? Is it just because they want to use the technology, or is there a reason that is innate in the actual creative process that he or she is going through? This is the main question. With the Duncan Macmillan piece, I mean, I'm mentioning this because it's just simple. He didn't need anything. He just needed a good actor or actress. And a space.
Let me fill in for listeners. This piece is based on the premise that a devoted son wanted to relieve a mother's depression. So he makes a list of everything that makes life worth living. And it can be from, the quality of vanilla ice cream. So it doesn't have to be enormously profound, right? To the love of a pet. To everything in between. And in the English slang of a brilliant thing, a great thing, a good thing, he makes this list of every brilliant thing. And I'm enthusiastic about this idea that in every culture there might be a different version of a brilliant thing, but every culture has one. How did Arab audiences respond when you?
They loved it. I mean, the Arab audience totally, because again, it's a mastery of the craft of the writer, but it brings us to that point. If technology is needed in the creative process, yes, why not? Let's use it. But
can I take it one more step ahead, which is even not so much technology as part of the expressive vocabulary of the artist, but because so many, well, all of three of you have spoken about the contribution to society, the promulgation of ideas, whether provoking or not, in a situation where any kind of provocative idea, and I'm looking particularly now at Lupe, is not to be taken for granted. This is not an easy thing to provoke in an authoritarian state. Does the technology assist you in the dissemination of those ideas in a way that they're out there, but you're not shut down? I don't know, Lupe, would you like to comment on that, perhaps?
Well, the only way we have to promote our theater is through social media. Mm-hmm. But in Venezuela, you can get into prison because of a Twitter. So you have to watch out what you put on social media. But regarding the technology, these three plays I was thinking to talk about how things change during this 25 years period for me. In the beginning, I talked about the migration phenomena through a humor tone. You know, I did jokes and, addressed the popular way to see that we were 500,000 people fleeing the country. 10 years after, I did another one. That happened in an airport waiting area. And was a woman waiting for a French guy who was about to rescue her from the country. And then 10 years after, it wasn't so humorous. It was already 5 million people that fled the country. So the play was a garage sale that a mother did for going to visit her daughter out of the country. And she had another daughter. The other daughter was sympathizing with the government. So she asked her mother to stay and to fight for the revolution. And the other that was living in the States asked her mother to come and help her with the 2 kids because she's getting a divorce. Simple. But it was more nostalgic, and I introduced the thing of having a sympathizer of the government in the play to protect the production and to also call the people for empathy because we are very divided by them. And last month, I did a production of a very recent play I just wrote that is called The Broken House. And everything happened in the mindset of 2 women, one 30 years old that has migrated. The play happened in Madrid, already out of the country, because it's 10 million people that fled the country. So it's another reality. So the play happened out of the country. And I did some videos because since it happened all in the mindset, they tried to solve, issues like belonging, sense of belonging, of betrayal, of domestic violence. We are talking about the country, but talking about ourselves. Very, childhood traumas and things like that. So I did some videos for referring to memories. I didn't need the technology this time, and I did them with a phone, and it came out and with a neighbor, a child that is a neighbor, and she has been doing street theater with me in Christmas times, and I asked her to do the acting. So it was very simple and so efficient. People were so moved by those memories, So I think it depends on what you need to say. You need technology. Otherwise, and now it's so easy to make because these phones are so capable of doing whatever you need, right? So well,
I just have to. I'm sorry, but I think I'm a theater maker, so for me, theater is that live interaction. You could put it in other forms, but then it loses something, and it's very this whole competition between the arts. It always happens. Like when the radio came to be, people thought they're going to stop going to the theater. And when the movies came to be, the people saw that no one's going to listen to the radio or radio dramas or go to the theater. So there is always that phase of, oh, this is it, this is the new stuff. But actually, this is, and for me, is how humanity enriches its expression. It's by adding these new layers, new forms. And there's a song from the 80s, TV killed the radio star, and actually it didn't. The TV never killed the radio. The movies never killed the radio. Netflix never killed the movies. There is a euphoria in the beginning, like when COVID happened, everyone was saying, okay, let's all watch theater on the screen. I can watch a play in Tokyo while staying in Cairo. But then after COVID, the numbers of theater goers all over the world increased gradually, but they did. They reached levels even higher than before COVID. And because people, feel that need to be in a dark space or in a space together, watching something, sharing these emotions as a group with the actors and so on. So it's really, we can digitize. I mean, we can express ourselves through digital forms, through movies, through cameras and phones and all kind of expression. But it doesn't take away from that. But we can't replace theater by it, and theater cannot replace any other form, and so on. So
no, I think we're all sort of live experience junkies in this, in this conversation. That's sacred communion in a live space that we were deprived of during COVID. I think that infatuation is continuing as we are able to return. But the real curiosity I had was whether or not the shaping of ideas as influenced by technology is causing people to self-select out of certain experiences of congregation, and how it's affecting their choice to access certain things, because their ideas and their opinions are being influenced by things that they're consuming digitally, before we can get them to that very special capture moment. I wonder what you've seen, Zeyba, in this forum, and how you would wish to contribute to, has technology contributed more than it has subtracted as we move into a disinformation 6 months in the United States, which continues to be almost, I think, surreal?
Thank you for asking that question. I think the only way we can counter and be as true to ourselves as possible and use every tool we have, which is, as I said, imagination and also the creativity of expression, is to tell our own stories. We must tell our own stories, and we must tell them so that people, the larger public, understands accurate, authentic storytelling. And in the process, we make ourselves visible. Because for communities under pressure, and I hope I'm answering your question correctly.
Yes.
Communities under pressure, such as US Muslims, such as communities of color, women, the largest community of those discriminated against. Unless we tell our own stories, we will remain at, we will face headwinds of technology and more moneyed, more organized others who don't wish our well-being, who selfishly, for their own personal gains, whether they be politicians or others, are spinning stories that color what we are. So that's where I rest. And also in the process, we find communities that are aligned. I'm going to give you one simple example. I arrived last night around midnight from San Francisco. I was there for the Center for Asian American Media's CAMS festival. It's a large film festival. I was checking into my hotel a day before, and as I was checking in, a man in his 30s yelled on the street Palestinians have no cuisine, and that makes them not human. Okay? And he was dragging his suitcase. He was checking in somewhere else, right next door, I think. And then at the film festival, one of our grantees, since we make grants, they showed a film. Well, CAM is our grantee, Center for Asian American Media. And they invited a Muslim filmmaker to show a film called 36 Seconds. 36 Seconds is about the triple homicide of 3 students in Durham, North Carolina that happened several years ago. Dia, Razan, and her sister. And it is their story. It's a documentary. And what that film, that horror showed so ably is the power of community to come together and face difficulties and face it down. And by sustained action, hope with strategy, that they will be heard, that they will make a difference, justice can be served. And indeed, the story changed from it being an act of passion because of a parking dispute to the fact that a neighbor, a white man, hated these 3 Muslim kids because 2 of them wore the hijab. Zana and her sister. And there, the young man, 23, 19, and about 20, 21, they were dental students, 2 of them, that their very being was abhorrent to this man because of their culture, because of their ethnicity. And their families fought, and they won against this man, who the police gave a pass to, and they showed evidence that in fact it was a hate crime, and it was a hate crime specific to them, because Dia had opened the door to him, and he recorded their conversation. That was his last act, and his phone fell to the floor when he was shot in the head. So the point is, this story changed by pressing on, by sustained action, by a collective of people. And they won.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if I could use that, and thank you for sharing that, as a segue into the next question, which is, Lupe, can you think of an example you could share with us, and perhaps this will be the final contribution in terms of respecting our time together today, where work that you've put into the world, you feel changed minds in a way that is in some way lasting, where you really felt people are walking out of this and thinking about this particular issue, this conundrum, differently than when they came in, and the satisfaction that I hope you felt from that moment if it was achieved.
Well, I have to say, after so many years doing theater, this last production I opened last month, was one of my greatest happiness, because it was my first time everybody was talking about the text when coming out. Even though it was a beautiful set design, because all happening, and even it was an artist making the paintings, because all happened in an artist studio. And there I received many comments afterwards through social media and through personal communication, but a week after, 2 weeks after, because it touches really sensitive fibers of the inside of anybody, like motherhood,
right,
like pedophilia, like all hidden and very delicate subject matters. So, and it's impressive that so many people has something to say about it. And they were really touched. And this thing about people coming out talking about the text has been one of my greatest satisfaction in my 45 years of doing theater.
How wonderful for you to share that. So art can make a difference in times of
I think so.
conflict, however many obstacles are put in the way of its creation. Ahmed, I'm sure you have several examples that you could choose from. Is there one in particular that you would wish to share?
Yeah, I think I did a play in 2014. It was called The Last Supper, which we had toured extensively until 2019. We brought it everywhere. We were at the Kennedy Center with it. We went to St. Petersburg, all over Europe, to Singapore, Hong Kong. And in spite of the fact that it's a very local piece, I mean, it's a piece about a very wealthy family, Egyptian family, having dinner. And I mean, I did this piece in 2014, after 3 years after the revolution. I hadn't done anything about the revolution because I didn't think it was possible for me to match the amount of emotions that came out during the time. But what struck me, I think that artists also need to step back from major events and take a look as a spectator and take the distance. What really struck me was the fact that in spite of everything and all the changes that happened during and after and even till now with the revolution in Egypt and I guess in the Arab world, there is a certain class that is almost intact. Nothing changes. They are in this bubble, and the world can crumble, and they're still there with everything they represent, which is power, wealth, greed, violence, segregation. I mean, everything. They just and that play was about that. Was about that dinner where the world is burning. We don't know it's burning. We don't hear of it, but we just see how empty they are and how vain and how violent and racist they are. And it resonated everywhere we showed. I mean, we showed it in Arabic, but with subtitles. So even with Chinese or Russian or English subtitles, the audiences got it right away and were totally engaged with it. And it's a pleasure to see that, because I showed it also in Egypt many times, and it's a pleasure to see how when you're talking about something that actually touches upon our human condition, rather than, I mean, through a very specific culture context, but it touches upon more than just this culture context, how people get it and read it right away, even if they are seeing a subtitle being run and not just understanding right away the text. So that was a great pleasure to hear. I mean, to see that, to experience that. I would like to say just also, I mean, what Zeyba was saying right now about the Palestinian, the man yelling, Palestine doesn't have okay. What strikes me is that the level of ignorance, of not knowing, because I always believe that, and this is why one of the reasons I do what I do is to present, a different vision of things. I mean, we have a very very limited understanding of the other, and the arts opens up this understanding. I mean, of course, you can't change the world, but you can definitely change perceptions through the art. And someone yelling that there's no, cuisine in Palestine, it's just, because they don't know. Maybe they will never want to know. But our role is to give everyone the opportunity to know more about the other, not to think of, it's not just changing the political idea, it's changing the culture perception of the other. How many Americans know about the realities of the Middle East today, of the contemporary society in the Arab world. How many of them know that how our youth are and what their problems are, which are somehow very similar. I mean, we live in a globalized, capitalized world that is crushing all the middle and poor and working classes. Everyone is being crushed all over the world, not just in non-Western in Western countries, everywhere. And I find that instead of solidarity in our global condition, because it has become a global condition, we're actually put against each other, when the biggest enemy is not each other, are the people ruling with wealth and power, with money, and basically directing us. So
yes, people are not their governments.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are not their governments.
Yeah.
I wonder if we could conclude, Zeyba, you must see a multiplicity of projects, of initiatives, of ambitious reaching towards something better that come before you as a potential funder. Do you see cause for optimism? Is there something that makes you feel that we could somehow move towards a better place?
I'm a believer of hope with strategy. And so that's why I find philanthropy really an interesting place for somebody like me, because we do have that eagle view of looking across a field because of the nature of our positions, our jobs. And I have to say that what is very exciting to me and gives me hope and helps me think strategically about how to boost that is the creative impulse. The more people are pushed, especially creative people and thinkers and academics, the more new and subversive, I would say, ways of circumnavigating problems comes up and takes hold. And that is film, that's through technology, it's things that Lupe said and Emma have said, they're artists. And that gives me hope that we are an indomitable species. I'm taking it to the species level. We are indomitable. Our spirit we can ultimately not be crushed. We are resilient. And in that resilience, we find new solutions. I mean, we are sitting, I'm coming back to this format, on this platform because of COVID also. Zoom was around before COVID, but nobody really paid attention. I heard about it vaguely. But then we were forced to communicate with each other. And that's one thing. We are a storytelling species, and we have an urge to communicate and stay connected. So this gives me hope.
Thank you. I wonder if we could conclude, Lupe, I'm curious, and I'm sure watchers and listeners would be too, about what you're thinking about next. What is the next project that you can't step back from, the next play that you can't stop thinking about creating or directing?
Well, the thing is that I would like to bring the broken house out of Venezuela, because it's my first time not being so local.
Right.
And I reach a much wider audience in terms of genres, ages, and all Venezuelans, but also I can touch the souls that are not from my local culture, I think, this time, because I didn't try to make it universal, but I was so honest and I went so deep. And that's the only thing that can save us, to do honest theater and to go deep into the human issues that we share all.
Yes, so through the particular, you found the universal.
Yes.
And now you want to share that as widely as possible. Wonderful.
Yes.
I hope that opportunity, I somehow think you'll find a way to make it happen.
Thank you.
And Ahmed, your next project, your next shift and change?
Well, I'm very concerned about a certain discourse for the past few years. I did my last piece on it, which was called "The Discrete Charm of the Pillar of the Society," and that discourse is about how the moral superiority of a certain part of the world, the Western world specifically, over the rest of the world, and that really, really, gets to me. I mean, these things kind of move me, and so yeah. So I'm working on that. I've done a piece on it. I'm going to do something else, probably on that also mixes what's the injustice that I and I would say very confidently 350 million Arabs feel about the situation in Palestine, because what people don't understand is that we don't take this as a Palestinian issue. We take this as an Arab issue. We see that injustice, that is happening, that's been happening for 7 years, that the world is trying to ignore, that all the, as an injustice done to all of us. I cannot not think of my children one day in a situation similar to the Palestinians, and I would just like to. My point is, there is no human superiority. We're all equal. We're all equal in our hate. We're all equal in our intelligence, in our creativity. It's our own choice. We choose who we are. We choose how evil or how incredibly good and great we could be.
Mhm.
And I just want to expose that. Sometimes I like to show that the ugly side is on both sides. So
yeah. Fair enough. Yes, everybody's right, everybody's wrong. We want it not to all be impossible. So there we are. Thank you. I've considered it a privilege to be in dialogue with you. I appreciate your commitment, your clarity, and I trust that this conversation will be of interest to others who are seeking the same. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for the invitation and for
thank you
allowing us to share our thoughts. And I'm grateful and honored.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Ahmed, Lupe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being with you. Thank you.
Absolutely.